because I've been there. I've been the guy, I've never done it, but I've been the guy that's want to hit reply and say assholes. I've been that guy, and I know I'm not a bad person.
Is the thought of being imperfect keeping you from taking action? Welcome to Inspired Action for Imperfect Humans. Each week, we give you real-life stories and thought-provoking research that inspires your soul to live a more fulfilled life through your own actions. From the heart of Calgary, Canada, here are your hosts, award-winning coaches, Christopher Lawrence and Kyle Kalu.
Hello, 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 compassionate assholes. Compassionate assholes.
Okay. Let's just be clear. You're not talking about me, right? Are you not talking about us? Are you kind of, sort of? Or is that about that story I mentioned to you about
the asshole?
Recruiting?
Actually, he's not an asshole. You were the asshole to him. And this is what we're talking about today.
Okay. So let's just jump right into it. Let's just jump right, because this is going to be really interesting.
Girl, I can't wait. And I want to hear the feedback from our listeners.
Yeah, because this I'm really, really looking forward to. I mean, I want to know, did we do the right thing? What else is happening? Because again, these are opinion. These are just kind of experiences. And, like I say to you all the time, we can't be the only one, right? This can't be exclusive to us. And if it is, we have a problem. There's a bigger problem here.
It is, Kyle. It's just us. And it's shocking. I know that our listeners are dying to know, but you got called an asshole yesterday for doing the right thing.
Now, of all the things, and I know people are saying, okay, so what's the surprise? Because again, maybe sometimes they may think I am, but no, this is actually unwarranted from my perspective. So, Christopher, we've been looking for a marketing person. That's a whole nother story, but we are currently recruiting for a marketing person for something else that's going on. Lots of different things that's happening for us. So we just need to bring that stuff in-house. So I'm primarily responsible to review the resumes and making sure there's certain things. We have certain pre-questions on there, with Indeed that says, hey, what is your year's experience in the first area? What's your year experience in the second area? And also, are you located in the location we want you to be in, right? So we put that stuff out. We've gotten quite a few, and we've just kind of keeping it going. We're contacting who we want and who we don't. And so there's quite a few number of people in the pile that we just feel, we don't want to continue.
I mean, they don't meet the criteria. And this is the unfortunate thing. So as you know, my primary job here at Change My Life Coaching. So the reason why most of my clients find me is for career coaching. And I take a very unique approach. It's very holistic. I've coached over 2,000 people in one-on-one settings on their careers. And one of the things that we talk about is that the job search process is inhumane, because you could send resumes out into a black hole and you might get nothing back. I've even had clients who have gotten to like second stage and third stage interviews and they never hear back. So obviously they never got the job, but they didn't even get an effing courtesy call. So I get it. I get it.
Because some recruiters can say also, well, can you imagine the amount of resumes I look at? Do you imagine how many things we do? And we're not like blaming you. We're just saying the whole process sometimes, just how it's set up.
Yeah, have some compassion. But Kyle, let's get into this story, because you were sending a rejection, you were sending rejection letters out, right? And so the
fact that they call it that, like the fact that in Indeed from the employer side, it actually says rejection, and
it's tough. You don't want to reject. It feels gross, but that's also part of life. Like we cannot hire every single person that's applying, and we can't give every single person a chance for an interview. That's just not possible. So you didn't like the way that they had, because there was a form rejection letter and you said, I don't like how they've written this. I want something a little bit softer. I want something a little bit more compassionate, just saying, hey, stay positive. This is a tough time right now. While you're not a fit for us, kind of keep looking, right? So you send this out yesterday. So, I mean, it's probably the nicest rejection letter that anybody's going to get. And
I'd love to read it actually, because just to kind of give a quick synopsis, right?
Sure. And actually you got some feedback on it too, didn't you?
Absolutely.
You got some feedback. Like one of the women that that received that rejection letter was like, thank you so much for getting back to me. Like, she had
And
something
reviewing my
really nice to and
resume.
review my
Oh, wow.
resume. She was
Yeah.
so
This
polite,
is very nice. And
So
she's going
go
to
ahead
keep
and
it
read that
up. And right.
letter.
So the letter, so we're going through, there's a few people that we just wanted to let them know, because the posting actually is not going to be closing for a period of time, but we just still wanted to let people know that we're not going to move forward with, right? So they had a recommendation, like you were saying, and we just kind of tweaked it a little bit, because I really wanted it to be
So read the letter.
the human experience. Okay.
The listeners want you, we're 5 minutes in, the listeners want you to read the letter.
Okay. This is why I could use that A word for you too. Anyway, so the letter says, hello, blank. Thank you for your interest in this blank position with us at Change My Life Coaching. We have reviewed your application. Unfortunately, we will not be moving forward with your application for this position at this time. And then I go on to say, I am sorry for the disappointing news. Best of luck in your job search. And I also added, I'm confident that you will be successful in your job search efforts soon. Stay hopeful. Sincerely, myself.
So that's our rejection letter, folks. So one woman responded to that, as we talked about, said thank you. And you got one response within 2 minutes, and it had one word, and the word was
assholes.
Like assholes has 3 S's in it, but you could hear it come out of his mouth like a snake. If he was in Hogwarts, he would definitely be a Slytherin with all those S's. So, so hard to not react. So of course, initial reaction is like, oh my God, like,
especially when you think you're doing a good thing, right? Regardless, even if your intentions are good, doesn't mean the other person's going to receive it.
Nobody in their life has received a rejection letter that nice. Like nobody in their whole life has received a rejection letter that nice. And then you get a response, asshole. So this is the thing. A couple of episodes ago, a few episodes ago, I think it was episode 2, season 2, episode 2, we did an episode called Check Your Assumptions. So what was your first assumption? Because I know you made a second assumption. What was your first assumption, Kyle? In 1 minute or less.
Yeah, with that, he was just like, really? Like, I really thought I was going to whatever. Like, he was ungrateful and just unappreciative. It's kind of like, I didn't have to send you anything, right? So I just thought about that for a second. And that was my first assumption, is that he's just an awful person who just... I think you got muted there. I'm not too sure. I can't really hear you.
Oh, okay. Sorry. There we go. Yeah. I turned 41 in January. So every ounce of technological knowledge I had has seeped out of my brain. I am now an old person. Actually, the funny thing is that my grandmother and my mother know how to use tech better than I do. Like, and I'm not kidding. I'm just like calling them, hey, how do I do this? So that's a first assumption. And to be honest, like, like if we want to practice what we preach, that's our story. I mean, it's what he did was not professional, in my opinion. It wasn't kind, in my opinion. But Kyle, what was your second assumption? And I just thought this was so cool. What was your second assumption?
Yeah, the second assumption for me was, okay, he obviously is frustrated. He's obviously disappointed. And I thought, well, is this because how many other rejection letters is he getting? How many, applications he's putting in there, so he could have really just been like, great, maybe that asshole wasn't for me. Maybe it was for the 15 other people he got it for. Maybe it was, I actually had no idea. So because, even a part of the first assumption I made, I was going, because there was an option, because obviously Indeed, or the application we're using to do this screening and the recruiting, it actually picked up that there was a foul language. And it even says, do you want to report and ban this person? Right?
So that's the thing, right? Like you could have, that one word could have had him banned. And with certainly I work with clients, but where every single client goes, I don't hear about other job search engines anymore. Right. I only hear about Indeed. That's where they're all going. And can you imagine if you had done that, he wouldn't have been able to apply for jobs.
Yeah. And it was the second assumption that stopped me from doing it.
That's the point, right? So we know we're going to make an assumption. So why do we default to worst possible scenario? Like if you knew his story, and just think about this for a second, the kind of person that receives a letter like that, and the first thing that comes out of their mouth is assholes, that person has had a hard life. Something has happened, whether it was like when they were a kid, or maybe it's just their rejections, right? So if you're going to make an assumption, just like when someone cuts you off in traffic, I mean, it's like when people cut you off in traffic, like I've been on the phone with somebody who I respect, like mentor to me. He was just pulling out of a parking spot and getting going out of his parkade. And we were just kind of chatting on his hands-free. And I heard him like I couldn't believe it. Like I'd never heard the man swear before, nothing, professional doctor, always polished. And all of a sudden I heard, oh, for fuck's sakes, are you fucking kidding me? Sorry, we don't F-bomb on this, do we? Sorry, Kyle. I could see it in your face. She's not happy with me. She is not happy with my effing. Meanwhile, she's effing around anyway.
Odd.
So I mean, like when we get into our cars, we do this, but we automatically assume that it was deliberate, it was intentional, and it was malicious. And that's what we assume when someone cuts us off in traffic. And so it's like, but why is that the first assumption? Like, why not assume that, maybe they like took a sip of coffee and burnt their mouth. Maybe they simply forgot. I have not met a single person who hasn't made at least one mistake driving, right? Like, what if it was just a simple mistake? What if like their mom died that morning and they were going to the hospital to ID her? Like why do we assume? And I'm not talking about making excuses for people. What I'm saying is, if you're going to assume this, why not assume the second thing, which is what you did, right? You moved to the second thing very quickly and you replied to him.
Yeah, and I just said really quickly in the reply, I said, listen, it's clear that you're upset, right? And I just want you to know that, in a situation like that, I had the option to get you banned from Indeed, but I'm sure it's not going to help what you're trying to achieve. And so I'm not sure how much of this you're going to hear, but you need to be respectful for yourself, if not for the other thing, right? And I also actually gave him some additional stuff, and I said, but think about the position you applied for. You actually don't meet that criteria. Like you deliberately said no to the 3 pre-screened questions that further qualifies it. Like you were a no to all 3 of those. And then there was no transferable skills in this thing. And here's the thing on top of what you just said, Christopher, is that for him to still do that, to call me that name or whoever he thought was on the other line, that name, because of course he doesn't know me. Right. And that's where I had to keep that in check as well. I was like, he doesn't know. He didn't wake up that morning and say, I'm going to go tell Kyle, whatever. But I said, I'm thinking to myself, like, I have access to, you gave us everything. We have your name, your phone number, your address. Right. Like, what if I was on that person who's like, I also made the assumption that he's a horrible person and I want to get him back and I want to be punitive. It's all about retribution. I could have made that really difficult for him because he couldn't have applied for anything else.
He couldn't have applied. You could have went and spray painted asshole on his house. Like, and I mean, there's media. You could have posted it on social media with his name. You could have gone to social media and made a comment gosh, like you could have tagged him in something like just, it's unfortunate, but you chose the compassionate route. Although you were stern in your reply. You were stern, you chose the compassionate route. And so this is the challenge to the listeners. Like you think about being in the workplace and it's like that person is ticking you off. What assumptions are you making? What is the story that you're telling yourself, right? About your employee, your employer, your peer, that kind of thing.
Right. And at this point, I'm actually kind of curious, is there any research? Because you're the guy we kind of go to research,
Yeah, so this is a thing. So actually what I was kind of thinking for this is that I'd like to talk about something a little bit different. So in our psychology, we actually, and I think this relates to physiology too. So we have 3 systems. We have our drive system. So our drive system is like pursuing, striving, achievement. So this is our need for achievement, right? And some people spend more time in their drive system. We have our soothing system. So this is like safety, calm, cared for, nurtured. And then we have our threat system. And our threat system is like anger, anxiety, self-criticism, criticism of others, that kind of thing. So we don't have time to talk about all of these today, but we're going to at some point in time. So, so we're going to talk about the threat system today. And there's a specific reason why, because that's where he went. He went to the threat system. So just a couple of things for our listeners. If you are in your drive and threat system, you are in your sympathetic nervous system, which means that you're using dopamine freely. And that's what leads to burnout if we don't go into our self-soothing. So you have to go into your soothing system, your self-soothing system, for things to be helpful, which is your parasympathetic nervous system. So you want to make sure that that's the check for our listeners. But let's talk about the threat system. So the threat system, the things that trigger this, and some people spend most of their lives here, right? We, if you kind of look
accustomed
at this,
to it,
that's it. So if you think of these three systems, say one is the size of the moon, one is the size of a big beach ball, and one is the size of a marble. And so you kind of look at that, and so we don't know this guy. Maybe this was just like this. Maybe his threat system is the size of a marble, right? And but this was we were the recipient of that moment. So think about it. For our listeners, you're in this. You've got these three systems. Which one is the size of the moon for you? Which one's the size of the a big beach ball, and which one is the size of a marble? Certainly for me, the drive system is the size of the moon. I'm so focused on achieving, right? And drive and that kind of thing. So maybe this guy's moon is the threat system. So the threat system will sound fairly familiar to people, but this is also where people kind of miss a couple of things. So the threat system is our fight, flight, freeze response, right? So we'll go into fight, we'll flee, we'll run away, right? Or we'll freeze, right? And you can literally see this. I saw my dad go into freeze once. This is what freeze looks like. My dad's car got broken into, and I was with him, got broken into, nothing was stolen. And he was just staring at it. And I said, "Oh, Dad, call your insurance company." And he just looks up at me. "I don't know what to do. I'm sorry, Christopher. I just don't know what to do." I'm like, "Dad, call your wife, who I know can get him moving, or call your insurance company." And he just looks at me. He's like, I don't know what to do. That's what freeze looks like, right? So after 15 minutes, it's like, give me your phone, right? So fight, flight, freeze, but also faint. So you might see this on YouTube, right? Where some friends come in and they scare another friend and that friend passes out, right? So fainting is one of the things. You also see it on those really intense rides that slingshot. There's lots of those videos on YouTube where it's people
the roller coasters.
Out.
Yeah. They're
roller
it's going up, it's going down.
Yeah.
It's like that time when you made my brother's soul leave his body at Canada's Wonderland.
Another story. Yeah. Oh, that was what Kyle's brother said on a roller coaster. He's like, my soul left my body at the beginning of this ride, and it was there to greet me when I got back. So then there's the fifth one, Kyle, and the fifth one is fawn. So there's fight, flight, freeze, faint, and fawn. And so what fawning is it's appeasing. So some people, when they're in that threat response, they go immediately to appeasing everybody else and making sure that they're okay, right? So, but a lot of people miss that in the threat system. So whatever, there was something in that message, maybe it was just the receiving of that message, that guy went into his threat system and he decided it was going to be a fight.
Yeah.
And so one word, he got his justice. We'll probably never hear from him again, right? He's probably not going to apply to that or reply to that, right? So then I think that the question is, Kyle, if we recognize that this might be where people are in their lives, is that, and certainly if the last 12 months has shown us anything, it's that people can go into that threat system really fast. So the question becomes, what would happen if the imperfect inspired action that people took was to actually make an assumption that moved them into soothing or self-soothing? Meaning, what if we actually looked at this inspired imperfect action, we looked at this with absolute compassion?
Love that.
I think about it. I mean, you and I sometimes go way out of our way and maybe awkwardly so. Like, I think sometimes we're awkwardly kind. Like, because you and I have talked about it. It's like, well, because we have his like name, address, and phone number. Like, I have that because I've been there. I've been the guy, I've never done it, but I've been the guy that's want to hit reply and say assholes. I've been that guy. And I know I'm not a bad person. I do stupid things sometimes. But I'm not
people
a bad
are hurting.
person.
It's another way you see this. I mean, how many times at the previous job we were at before IT banned it, where they reply to the entire company to tell you their boss is an idiot and this place is an
We've
F
seen
and this
stuff
and that.
like this.
I mean, people have had that type, right? Because that's just what it is. And based on what you said as well, I think people have to be mindful that even if you think, oh, that would never happen to me, that would, these people, they didn't think that this would happen to, again, we're making some assumptions, but this guy didn't think that, oh, if I ever got a message like that, I'm going to reply assholes, right?
No.
So there's times where depending what's happening, you could jump into that, right? And if I could just give an example of Fleet for those people who are wondering, and you hear me say this sometimes too about, you know, you get a group of Black people in a mall, start running. We don't need to worry why they're running. We just start running. There's actually even TikToks that show it. So I am validated when I say there's times people.
I'd like to see research on it. Like, I wonder, do white people just sit there and stare and go, what's happening? And do Black people run? Like I sort of feel like white people are like the lemurs, right? We're like,
we do. Happening? If we just know if you're running, there's a reason. Let's just run.
Let's just run.
We tap into Fleet right away.
So anyway. your imperfect inspired action, folks, is what we call absolute compassion, and this is what we want to do. And I think, Kyle, moving forward, we are just going to call ourselves the compassionate assholes, because we know what we did was compassionate. I wanted to come back to a point just real quick, and I'd like our listeners' feedback on this. You'll hear in the show notes how you can. In the outro, how you can reach out to us, but we have this guy's phone number, and one of the thoughts where I was going with this thing about being sometimes awkwardly kind, you know, where it's like we're so kind that sometimes people don't know how to receive it. I want to know from our listeners, should we reach out to this guy and offer him some coaching? Like pick up the phone and call him and say, listen, like, this is your reply. We get it. Like, for you to send that, you have to have fallen on hard times. So we are going
assumptions right. Yeah.
We are going to, you know, like, should we reach out to him and say, look, we can't give you a job. We can't give you a job. We can't give you a job. We can't give you money, but we can offer you some coaching to help you with moving forward with your life. So I want to hear from our listeners. Like, should we do that? By the time this show airs, a couple of months will have passed from that time. So, but for us, it's like, we're brave enough to, to reach out and have a conversation. Yeah.
So either we want to know what you say, or we'll update you if we did do it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Sometimes people just need kindness. Jesus.
I agree.
Okay, folks, here we go.
Compassionate asshole. That's you. That's me.
It's our goal to build a global community of inspired action takers, and we can only do that with your help. So if you love inspired action, please leave a review on your favorite podcasting app and share us on your socials. You've heard from us. Now we want to hear from you. Go to inspiredactionpodcast.ca and tell us, what is the inspired action you took this week? Next week on Inspired Action for Imperfect Humans.
You got hired. I'll never forget the date, December 8th of 2008. And that was the beginning of the end of our relationship.